Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take a comprehensive look at sources you might not have time to read, distill the central narrative, and deliver the profound insights straight to you.
And today, we are focusing on a figure whose career timeline is less a steady climb and more a series of, well, earth-shaking events.
Exactly, we're talking about the exceptional life and career of Halle Berry.
When you look at her biography, you're not looking at a linear path at all. It's a journey defined by these stark, almost unbelievable extremes.
So our mission today is to really synthesize this massive amount of biographical data. We're going from her formative years, the struggles, the historic triumphs, right up to her recent work as a director and, surprisingly, a legislative activist.
Right. We're aiming to understand the engine that drives that level of sustained resilience, because it's really something else.
And the core insight, the thing that I think grounds this entire deep dive, is this incredible dichotomy that defines her public life.
It really is a dichotomy.
I mean, we are talking about the only African-American woman in history to win the Academy Award for Best Actress. That is a singular history-making achievement.
Absolutely. And then in Hollywood, where success is all about that kind of high praise, her biography offers this perfect structural inversion.
You're talking about the Razzie.
I'm talking about the Razzie. This same historic figure famously showed up in person to accept the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actress for Catwoman.
Which is just unheard of.
To be a holder of both the highest artistic honor and, the highest critical dismissal, and to own both moments equally, that reveals everything about her willingness to take risks and her ability to manage public perception.
It's a spectacular balance of triumph and critical reception that we really need to dissect.
So where do we start?
We're going to start right at the beginning, the foundation that explains where that incredible strength and resilience originates. Okay, let's unpack this, starting in the Midwest. Our sources place her birth in Cleveland, Ohio, on August 14th, 1966.
And the details here are surprisingly charming and, specific.
All right, she was born Maria Halle Berry.
And that middle name is a great piece of local color. Halle was chosen after Halle's department store, which was a pretty well-known Cleveland landmark.
So it immediately situates her origins way outside the glare of Hollywood.
Exactly. And she legally changed her name to Halle Maria Berry when she was just 5 years old, so she shifted the order. But that tie to the Midwestern locale, it remains a really fundamental part of her story.
The sources also confirm her biracial heritage, which would become such a key factor in her identity later on.
Mm-hmm. Her mother, Judith Ann, was a psychiatric nurse and a first-generation American from a family with Liverpool descent.
And her African-American father, Jerome Jesse Berry, worked at the same hospital before he became a bus driver.
But that domestic environment was instantly fractured. Her parents divorced when she was only 4.
So she and her older sister, Heidi Berry Henderson, were raised exclusively by their mother.
Exclusively. And that estrangement from her father was total and long-lasting. By 1992, she publicly stated she didn't even know if he was still alive.
But just saying the relationship was severed doesn't really capture the trauma embedded in her childhood, does it?
Not at all. The sources detail a horrifying environment of domestic abuse. She recalled witnessing her father's violence toward her mother. I mean, she said she was beaten daily, kicked downstairs, and even struck with a wine bottle.
That is it's unimaginable.
That kind of systemic, foundational violence, that's not just trauma, that's a survival course.
Yeah.
When you look later at her immense professional drive and the fight she puts up in her private life, you have to trace it back to this.
Right. That constant necessity to be alert, to be strong, to be a protector.
It defines her.
And that trauma wasn't just confined to the home. The sources mentioned she was also bullied as a child.
Yes, and she learned how to fight and protect herself as a result. Think about that for a moment.
The future world-famous actress, a symbol of glamour and action.
Developed her fundamental coping mechanisms by having to physically defend herself in childhood. That's the psychological seed that eventually blossoms into the action star who performs her own stunts and fights for legislative change.
So she learned very early that safety was something she had to actively earn and defend for herself.
Absolutely. And that tremendous drive translated directly into her life in Oakwood, Ohio. She excelled in every structured environment she entered.
She really did. She graduated from Bedford High School, where she somehow managed to be an honor student, a cheerleader, the editor of the school newspaper, and the prom queen.
It's an almost perfect list of high-achieving, structured success. It's a remarkable record of external validation.
It's like she was determined to master every system that was put in front of her.
For sure. After high school, she worked in the children's department of Higbee's department store and attended Cuyahoga Community College. But the real game changer, the vehicle that moved her from local success to national visibility.
That was the beauty pageant circuit in the 1980s.
That was it. And this is where she really started turning heads.
So she won Miss Teen All-American 1985 and then Miss Ohio USA 1986.
But the pageant success that mattered most wasn't actually winning the main crown. When she competed for Miss USA in 1986, she ended up as the first runner-up, losing to Miss Texas.
But there's a key detail there.
The very key detail. She was awarded the highest score in the interview competition.
So this isn't about physical appearance.
Not at all. This is about her intellectual composure, her ability to articulate ideas under pressure, and her magnetic communication skills. That ability to connect with an audience became her greatest asset.
And the historic significance of her pageant run goes even deeper than Miss USA.
It does. She became the first African-American woman to represent the U.S. at Miss World 1986, where she placed 6th.
So being a first became this repeated theme in her life.
Exactly. It set the stage for all the pressures and achievements that would follow in Hollywood. She leveraged the visibility of the pageants and transitioned immediately to her next, much more difficult phase.
Okay, here's where the narrative takes a really sharp turn from that structured success to extreme risk. In 1989, she moves to New York City to pursue acting.
And she's trading that comfortable, controlled environment of pageants and the Midwest for the sheer, brutal anonymity of a major city.
And the sources are really unambiguous about the ensuing struggle.
Oh, yeah. She ran out of money. Quickly, she was briefly reduced to living in a homeless shelter and a YMCA.
This is a state pageant winner, an honor student, suddenly struggling just to find a safe place to sleep.
You have to consider the mental shift required to go from walking a stage in a gown to sleeping in a shelter. That level of personal sacrifice and determination means the acting dream was everything.
She wasn't just trying to make it, she was fighting for basic survival again.
That experience in the shelter must have reinforced that early lesson from her childhood. Resilience is the only currency that matters. It's proof that her drive wasn't just about glamour, it was about escaping a cycle of instability.
And that foundational toughness is what allowed her to persevere.
And then the screen breakthroughs of the 1990s started to materialize. Her first film role was in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever in 1991.
But the role that truly launched her into the mainstream consciousness was a romantic comedy Boomerang in 1992, starring alongside Eddie Murphy.
That film established her as a major force in comedy and as a romantic lead. But the true critical and dramatic validation, that arrived at the end of the decade.
With the television film introducing Dorothy Dandridge in 1999.
Exactly.
This role was hugely significant culturally, wasn't it? Dorothy Dandridge was this iconic, boundary-breaking Black actress who faced immense racial and professional barriers, culminating in her tragic early death.
So for Halle Berry to portray her and to do it so effectively,
It was like a passing of the torch.
a passing of the torch and a profound artistic statement. Dandridge was the first Black woman to be nominated for a Best Actress Oscar back in 1955.
So Berry winning both a Primetime Emmy Award and a Golden Globe Award for that portrayal, it signaled her dramatic arrival and established her connection to that history of fighting for recognition.
It set the table perfectly for the monumental moment that would define her career just 2 years later.
So she enters the new millennium not just as a successful actress, but as an award-winning actress who is deeply connected to the history of Black women in Hollywood.
She's transitioned from adversity and homelessness to artistic recognition through sheer, undeniable tenacity.
So the 2000s are really the definitive decade for Berry.
Absolutely, because they represent the absolute zenith of her career, followed by this crushing pressure of what it means to be the one who broke through.
The peak, the moment that stops the clock, is unequivocally her performance in Monsters Ball in 2001.
Unquestionably. She played Letitia Musgrove, a struggling widow entangled with a racist prison guard, and the acclaim was instantaneous and overwhelming.
She cleaned up the early awards, the National Board of Review, the Screen Actors Guild Award, but the Academy Award is the one that mattered.
And on March 24, 2002, she became the only African-American woman to win the Academy Award for Best Actress, and the first woman of color overall to take that prize.
It's one of the most emotional, historically significant acceptance speeches in Oscar history. Let's remember the exact words as our sources highlight them.
She declared, "This moment is so much bigger than me. This is for every nameless, faceless woman of color who now has a chance tonight because this door has been opened."
That quote is the key to understanding her entire subsequent career.
It is. She didn't accept the award just for herself. She accepted it as an avatar for historical change. That moment put an immense, almost suffocating pressure on her future choices.
And the NAACP's congratulatory message, paired with Denzel Washington's Best Actor win that same night, it explicitly asked, is this the sign?
Is this the sign that Hollywood is finally ready to judge performance based on skill and not skin color? A massive question to hang on to people.
So when you hold that historic weight, every decision you make afterward is scrutinized not just for its artistic merit, but for its symbolic implications.
And the immediate fallout was complex, especially commercially.
Yeah.
It really exposed the intersection of art and commerce. Our sources detail that immediately after winning the Oscar, she leveraged that historic win and asked Revlon, her spokesmodel company since 1996, for a higher fee. She was demanding compensation commensurate with her new singular status.
What was the reaction to that?
The reaction was hostile. Ron Perelman, the chief of Revlon, reportedly stalked off in a rage.
Wow. So it shows that the achievement of the artistic pinnacle did not automatically translate into simple, undisputed financial equality.
Not at all. She had to fight, even with a gold statue in hand, to be paid what she was worth.
Now we have to address the elephant in the room regarding Monsters Ball, the controversy around the role itself.
This is a really complex ethical and artistic discussion. The film featured a graphic nude love scene with her co-star, Billy Bob Thornton, who played a deeply racist character.
And for many in the African-American community, this choice was seen as deeply problematic.
There was a vocal critique that she had compromised her dignity for the role, especially given the history of Black bodies being exploited or misrepresented on screen.
That's a tough position to be in, winning the highest possible artistic award while simultaneously facing significant critique from the community you represent.
It absolutely is. And she addressed the criticism publicly. She stated she did not see a reason to ever go that far again.
So she was aware of the line she had crossed.
Acutely aware, not just artistically but culturally, in pursuit of that historic, dramatic achievement. It was a calculated risk with a cost she recognized and acknowledged afterward.
So given that immense pressure and the critical backlash surrounding the performance's context, how did she pivot professionally? It seems she immediately leaped into the franchise, high commercial stakes realm.
That was a highly strategic, calculated move. She needed to prove she was a box office draw, capable of anchoring massive, diverse commercial successes.
She was already established as Storm in the X-Men franchise at this point.
Right, but the Oscar win was so powerful that producers demanded rewrites for the sequel, X2, specifically to expand her screen time. She went from supporting role to essential A-list component overnight.
And the risks didn't stop there. She followed up with Swordfish in 2001.
She took the role of a henchwoman, which again required a nude scene. Our sources note that this time she took the risk with the encouragement of her then-husband, Eric Benet.
So it shows a continuous, aggressive push toward roles that kept her visible and challenged her comfort zone.
Regardless of the critical or physical cost. And then came the definitive action role of that era. Bond girl Jinx in Die Another Day in 2002.
This was pure Hollywood iconography. She filmed that famous homage to Ursula Andress's scene from Dr. No.
Emerging from the surf in a bikini with a knife, it was a clear, unambiguous statement about her commercial power and sex appeal post-Oscar.
And she recognized the calculation too, didn't she?
Oh, absolutely. She characterized the scene as splashy, exciting, and provocative, and explicitly told the media it was a necessary move that would keep me still out there after winning an Oscar.
That's a remarkable admission of the need to maintain commercial gravity, even after achieving the highest artistic prize.
You have to keep feeding the machine, and feeding the machine brought immediate, severe physical consequences.
Right. The 2000s were defined by physical commitment and injury.
During the filming of Die Another Day, debris from a smoke grenade flew into her eye, requiring a serious 30-minute operation. It was a stark reminder of the physical stakes of the action genre.
And that injury pattern repeated the next year in Gothika, the psychological thriller opposite Robert Downey Jr.
While filming, she broke her arm. Downey, in the intensity of a scene, twisted it too hard. This wasn't a small accident. Production had to be halted for 8 weeks while she healed.
But the film was still a moderate box office hit.
It was. It made about $60 million in the U.S. and $80 million abroad. But these consecutive serious injuries, they just underscore the relentless physical price of maintaining her A-list, high-octane career strategy in the post-Oscar spotlight.
Which brings us to the famous counterpoint, Catwoman in 2004. This movie is essential for understanding her strategic positioning. Let's talk about the money first.
The money was huge. She received a U.S. $12.5 million fee for the title role.
So this salary, coupled with her $10 million per film estimate by the end of the decade, as contextualized by Ebony.
It confirms she had succeeded in establishing herself as one of the highest-paid actresses in Hollywood, period. She got the compensation she fought for at Revlon.
So financially, it was a triumph, creatively and critically.
An absolute disaster. The film is universally regarded by critics as one of the worst ever made. The backlash was brutal.
Devastating. And this is the moment where she shows the difference between a resilient actor and a true force of nature.
She was nominated for the Worst Actress Razzie Award, and rather than send a representative or simply ignore it,
She showed up, in person.
she walked onto that stage holding her golden Oscar from Monsters Ball in one hand and the golden Razzie in the other.
That visual is so profoundly powerful.
It is the ultimate synthesis of her career's duality. The genius of the moment is that it was both profoundly honest, acknowledging the failure, and strategically brilliant, disarming every single critic and humanizing her career trajectory.
She didn't make excuses. She explicitly called Catwoman the rock bottom needed to be at the top.
And she linked it back to her deepest personal foundation, her mother's teaching. She recounted her mother's advice. If you could not be a good loser, then there's no way you could be a good winner.
That ability to tie a $12.5 million failure back to the lessons of resilience learned in a tough Cleveland childhood is a masterful move.
It tells you that the person who showed up to accept the Razzie is the same tough, battle-tested person who survived abuse and homelessness decades earlier. She owns her choices, high or low.
So she survived the decade of historic triumph and massive critical collapse, emerging as one of the highest paid and arguably most psychologically resilient figures in modern cinema.
Following the high-stakes drama of the 2000s, the next phase of her career, starting around 2005, is defined by stabilization, seeking out critically complex roles, and most importantly, moving behind the camera to seize creative control.
So the first move was to reestablish her dramatic credentials, particularly in television, which had been so successful for her with Dorothy Dandridge.
Right. She received her second Primetime Emmy nomination in 2005 for the ABC film adaptation of Zora Neale Hurston's classic novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, where she played Janie Crawford.
This demonstrated her commitment to challenging, culturally significant roles rooted in African-American literature.
It reinforced the identity she consciously embraced, and she also expanded her portfolio by serving as an executive producer on Lackawanna Blues.
Now, on the film side, between 2005 and 2013, the box office results were, well, they varied wildly.
Yeah.
It shows that even with an Oscar and a massive salary, consistency is difficult in Hollywood.
Take the thriller Perfect Stranger in 2007 with Bruce Willis. Critics weren't impressed. They described the plot as convoluted, and the box office was modest at $73 million worldwide.
But the same year, she had a critical triumph with Things We Lost in the Fire.
Yes, and that film, despite its small global theatrical run of only $8.6 million, was a real pivot point in terms of creative environment.
How so?
It was hugely significant because it was the first time she had worked with a female director, Suzanne Bier. Berry expressed a sense of immediate connection and common ground with Bier, noting the comfort of thinking the same way.
And the critics adored her performance in it.
They did. The Austin Chronicle said she was brilliant here, as good as she's ever been. It just reminds us that commercial success aside, the raw talent that won the Oscar was always present when she chose deeply character-driven roles.
And she continued to chase that challenging material. In 2010, she starred in the independent drama Frankie and Alice.
This was an exceptionally demanding role. She was playing a multiracial woman with dissociative identity disorder, struggling against a powerful alter personality.
And it earned her an African American Film Critics Association Award and a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress.
It did. The Hollywood Reporter praised the psychological depth, confirming her critical range remained broad and respected, far beyond the confines of action franchises.
Then came the massive high-concept risk, Cloud Atlas, in 2012.
This film was epic, budgeted at $128.8 million, featuring a huge ensemble cast, including Tom Hanks. She played 6 entirely different characters across multiple timelines and identities.
A huge artistic swing.
A massive swing, but commercially, it only narrowly recouped its budget worldwide, and critically, it generated wildly polarized reactions. It was a huge commitment that didn't provide the clear box office mandate she might have hoped for.
It seems like that era of high-risk gambles was starting to settle, because the very next year, 2013, she had a solid, uncontentious success with The Call.
The Call was a sleeper hit, grossing $68.6 million globally. She played a heroic 911 operator, a role that was grounded and accessible.
And she was drawn to that, wasn't she?
She was. She said she was drawn to the idea of being a part of a movie that was so empowering for women, noting that Hollywood often reserves heroic roles for military or highly specialized figures, not everyday people.
And it was a critical and commercial win. The New York Times called it an effectively creepy thriller that gave her a gutsy, blue-collar character.
So as she stabilizes her acting career, the most significant shift happens. She begins moving toward greater control, shifting into production and directing.
A move directly linked to her life as an activist.
This is where we see the fusion of her public platform and her business acumen. In 2014, she co-launched her new production company, 606 Films, with Elaine Goldsmith Thomas.
But the name isn't random.
Not at all. It's a deliberate, permanent dedication to her legislative success.
What's the story behind 606?
606 refers to the anti-paparazzi bill, SB 606, which she personally championed and pushed through. California Governor Jerry Brown signed it into law in 2013.
So the company name is an explicit statement. Our business is rooted in advocacy and the protection of private space.
A direct response to the massive scrutiny her family endured. It's fascinating. She literally built her next professional venture on the backbone of her most significant personal legislative achievement.
And she combined this new production focus with a major role in television.
Right. Starring in and co-executive producing the CBS sci-fi series Extant from 2014 to 2015. She played astronaut Molly Woods, and the move allowed her consistent high-level control over narrative and scheduling that massive film franchises often don't provide.
And the reviews were good. Critics noted she brought dignity and gravity to the role.
And her return to action after Extant maintained her commercial profile, notably in the successful Kingsman, The Golden Circle in 2017.
And playing the fierce assassin Sophia in John Wick, Chapter 3 Parabellum in 2019. Those roles really leveraged her established physical capabilities.
But the culmination of this drive for control was her directorial debut with Bruised in 2020. She directed herself in the starring role as Jackie Justice, a disgraced MMA fighter trying to rebuild her life and connect with her son.
Directing yourself in a physically demanding lead role, that is the ultimate act of creative control.
It is. It required her to bring that fighting spirit we trace from her childhood and apply it directly to her professional life in a completely new capacity. The film premiered at TIFF 2020 and was released on Netflix in 2021, earning positive reviews for her performance.
So she proved that her resilience wasn't just about surviving trauma, but about seizing and wielding creative authority.
And her relevance continues to endure globally. She served as executive producer for the BET series Boomerang, based on her 1992 film, connecting her past work to new talent.
And in a sign of her artistic gravitas, she was announced in April 2025 as a jury member for the main competition section of the Cannes Film Festival.
It's a career that continuously seeks renewal, authority, and influence.
Okay, so we've established that Halle Berry's professional success has always been inextricably linked to her personal battles.
Always. And now, we must dive into the specific, often harrowing details of her private life because they explain the relentless fighter we see on screen and in business.
We discussed the domestic violence she witnessed as a child, but the sources confirm she suffered significant physical trauma as an adult as well.
That's right. During the filming of The Last Boy Scout in 1991, she lost 80% of the hearing in her left ear due to a beating from a former abusive boyfriend.
Which is a shocking detail that underscores the intense parallel life she was living. While ascending the professional ranks, she was navigating extreme personal danger,
resulting in a permanent physical disability. That she continued to fight for top roles, especially action roles, while living with 80% hearing loss in one ear is a testament to her profound inner strength.
And the controversy over the identity of the abuser, whom she never named publicly, also highlights the intense public scrutiny he was under.
It does. In 2004, her former boyfriend, Christopher Williams, publicly accused Wesley Snipes of being responsible. But regardless of the identity, the undeniable fact is that the trauma itself. A private agony unfolding while she was pursuing a public career defined by physical glamour and composure.
She also openly battled her mental health, following her highly publicized separation from her first husband, David Justice.
They divorced in 1997.
Right, and after that, she publicly revealed she was so depressed she considered taking her own life.
Sharing suicidal ideation is an extremely vulnerable act for a major public figure. It provides crucial context. The strength we see in her professional life is not an endless well of confidence, but rather a survival mechanism constantly deployed against severe personal setbacks and emotional distress.
We should also revisit that early misstep, the May 2000 legal issue.
Yes, she pleaded no contest to leaving the scene of a car accident. This resulted in 3 years probation, a significant fine of $13,500, and 200 hours of community service.
It's a marker of accountability and a reminder that even during her rapid ascent in the early 2000s, there were personal errors that resulted in public consequences.
And then there are the complexities of her 3 marriages and 1 major partnership, which were all highly scrutinized. After David Justice, she married singer-songwriter Eric Benet.
From 2001 to 2005, and that marriage was fraught with difficulty.
Notably due to Benet undergoing treatment for sex addiction in 2002, which led to their separation. It's also interesting to remember, as we noted earlier, that it was Benet who encouraged her to take the creative risk of the nude scene in Swordfish.
So her partners have played a direct, though sometimes complicated, role in her career decisions.
Definitely. Then came her defining public battle. The partnership with French-Canadian model Gabrielle Aubry from 2005 to 2010, with whom she shares a daughter.
And this resulted in one of the most protracted and financially devastating custody disputes in recent Hollywood memory.
The dispute began in 2011, and it centered on Berry's desire to move to France to live with her new partner, Olivia Martinez. She argued that the relentless paparazzo harassment, which she later fought via legislation, was threatening her daughter's well-being.
And Aubry objected, claiming it would severely restrict his ability to co-parent.
The judge denied her request in November 2012, ruling in favor of Aubry's objection to moving the child to France. And shortly thereafter, the situation turned physical.
It escalated dramatically. Aubry and Olivia Martinez got into a physical altercation at Berry's residence.
Martinez performed a citizen's arrest on Aubry. The aftermath was widely publicized. Aubry obtained a restraining order against Martinez, alleging Martinez threatened to kill him if he didn't allow the move. The court documents showed Aubry had sustained significant injuries to his face.
This was just a deeply public, traumatic, and expensive legal battle. What were the financial consequences?
Immense. In 2014, a superior court ruled that Berry had to pay Aubry $16,000 per month in child support.
$16,000 a month.
On top of that, she was ordered to pay $115,000 retroactively and a staggering $300,000 for Aubry's attorney fees.
Wow.
This entire saga serves as a profound illustration of the financial and personal cost of private life under intense public scrutiny. Even after they settled custody in August 2023, she was still required to pay $8,000 monthly in support.
And she did ultimately marry Olivier Martinez in France in 2013, with whom she shares 1 son, but they divorced in 2016.
So she navigated these repeated cycles of highly public relationships, trauma, and legal conflict. But her resilience shows up in another, more positive area, her public advocacy and activism.
Her activism is so successful because it's focused and personal. In 2006, she joined the environmental fight against the Cabrillo Port liquefied natural gas facility proposed off the coast of Malibu.
And she wasn't just lending her name, she was vocal about the impact.
Right. She stated her concern for air quality and the marine ecosystem. Her public profile, alongside others, was instrumental in swaying public opinion.
And Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger vetoed the facility in 2007. That's a real-world legislative victory.
The most personal legislative win, as we discussed with the naming of her company, was the anti-paparazzi bill, SB 606.
In 2013, she testified in Sacramento alongside Jennifer Garner, advocating for the bill to protect celebrities' children from relentless harassment. She used the pain of her own child's exposure to push for permanent legal change.
And the bill passed, making it illegal for photographers to harass children of celebrities.
And her most recent advocacy in May 2024 shows she continues to be willing to use her personal experience to fight for public health change.
This is the menopause bill.
Exactly. She, through her support, behind a bill for increased menopause research and education. She did this by publicly and candidly declaring, "I'm in menopause, okay? The shame has to be taken out of menopause. We have to talk about this very normal part of our life that happens."
By stripping the stigma from a sensitive, private biological process, she instantly moved the legislative needle and gave permission for millions of women to have that conversation.
So finally, let's briefly revisit her public image and biracial identity, a theme we touched on early in her life.
Born to an African-American father and a white mother, she said her biracial background was painful and confusing when she was young.
However, she made a very clear, conscious choice early in her life to identify as a Black woman. She stated that was how she knew she would be perceived in society, and she chose to own that identity fully.
And that proactive choice informs her entire professional posture, from the roles she sought to the historical significance of her Oscar win.
She's an actress highly aware of how she is categorized, both critically and culturally. This is also the person who was named People's 50 Most Beautiful People in the World in 2003, and Esquire magazine's Sexiest Woman Alive in 2008 at age 42.
And she humorously noted the timing of that right after having a baby.
She did. She has consistently navigated and often mastered the public perception of beauty, race, and sex appeal throughout her entire career. #tag outro.
So as we conclude this deep dive, the overarching theme is not simply success, but profound, continuous resilience.
It really is.
Halle Berry's career is a masterclass in converting extreme professional and personal scrutiny into creative and legislative power. From sleeping in a shelter to becoming a director and a legislative advocate, she has constantly defined her own terms.
The ability to absorb failure and convert it into strength is her signature move. The legislative achievements, SB 606, the environmental fight, the menopause advocacy show that she takes her public profile and applies it to tangible, long-lasting, real-world change that benefits more than just herself.
And when we revisit the Monsters Ball achievement and the Catwoman Razzie acceptance, we see this strategic mind at work.
Absolutely. She is willing to take calculated high-risk swings, whether they are artistic, commercial, or physical, and she handles the consequences with brutal yet often humorous frankness tied back to the fundamental survival lessons of her childhood.
This brings us back to the immense weight of being a pioneer. When she won her Oscar, the NAACP didn't just celebrate. They posed a question to Hollywood.
Right, they asked.
Was this a sign that performance would now be judged solely on skill? So, given the extreme highs and lows of her subsequent choices, from the massive salary of Catwoman and its catastrophic critical reception, to the injury-prone risks of Gothica and Die Another Day and the polarizing effect of Cloud Atlas, we have to ask you, the learner.
How much of her challenging career trajectory in the 2000s and 2010s reflects the difficulty of maintaining creative freedom and commercial viability after achieving such a singular historic first?
Did the pressure to prove that the door was truly open for others compel her to take greater and sometimes riskier professional gambles than her white counterparts?
It's a compelling question because the weight of history doesn't stop just because the curtain closes.
A powerful thought to reflect on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.